Convening the February 4th, 2026 meeting of the Finance Committee. Let's start with the minutes. Minutes of February 2nd. Everyone's gotten a copy of them. Has anyone noticed any changes or revisions that should be made? Rebecca is about to make a motion to approve the minutes of February 2nd. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, raise your hand. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 8. 9, 4, 7, 8. All opposed, raise your hand. And abstentions. 2. Minutes. All right, let's just jump right into budgets.
Would you like any time?
Yeah, I'm gonna go down, according to the index in the management budget book. So we're going to finance committee. So let's do the select board.
Sophie is under the weather, she can't be with us tonight. But we have met with the executive secretary to the board. It's on the salaries in one area. That's consistent with everybody else at 3%. And the select board expenses, the manager and the deputy manager, when they were here, they mentioned the $90,000 for accounting and auditing. That's a $12,000 increase, and that's due to the new contract that they have with the new audit that they have. I can't remember the name. I can remember the old one, I can't remember the new one. And also, if you notice, telephone expenses, that telephone expense for $500, that was the cell phone for the executive secretary when she turned it in. So, do her own cell phone, costing $500. Office supplies and noises, they're all deductions based upon what the discussions that they have with the manager and whatnot. Printing is down. If you go to line dues and memberships, line 570,000, you'll notice that the actual in 2025 was 18,232, and then in 2026 it was 13,000. It's level funded again for 13,000. That increase in that particular year in 2025 was due to a shortfall in the dues for dues and memberships in the planning department. So they took it out and select budget. That was that increase for that 1 year. So switch and remember, as of last year, they took out, remember they were carrying their half-time position until well. But they do with that money is that they divided it supposedly between IT and the pump. So anyway, having said all that, I'm going to recommend that the select board's total taxation total of $372,158.
Okay. All right, any questions for Dave on boards budget? None? All right, and then let's to vote. All those in favor of the select board's budget at 372,158, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
I need to abstain.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. And any opposed? And all right, town manager.
Okay, and the town manager's salaries and longevity. If you notice, the increase is going to be a lot. Like 10,169 salary, 1,969 longevity. The in the expenses, again, is another, which was the 10% cut out of the zero. But you will notice there's a $15,000 cut in line 573,000 on dues. The oh, what the manager has done is all these things that they join. He's got rid of all of them except MMA. That's in his license, right? But you know,
League of Cities.
that's the one. He's focusing on things that affect the town, how good they should be. So that's where you see that less than 15,000. Okay. Other than that, there's no vacancy there. So I'm going to recommend the total taxation of 803,785. 803,785.
All right, is there a second? Okay. All right, that's Jenny's call.
So, what were the biggest instances of this happening to the 1% instead of 3%?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so what are the reasons that the salaries only went up 1% and not 3%?
Some of these salaries, they go up halfway through the year. That's all right. And another thing that they do was, in some of these salaries, the negotiate cell phone allowance to put into the salaries and a stipend it's into the salaries. Not in all situations, but in most. You see that legal budget. That handles that.
The communications coordinator also went down 5%.
Yes, yes. That's another fact.
I was just gonna ask, because you mentioned the communications coordinator, which I have, is that ARPA position that was going like halfway through the year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions on the town manager budget? All right, it's been a motion for 803,785. Been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous.
Okay. Next budget is the legal budget, but we're gonna hold off on that And the reason why Sylvan had a whole off on it was asked if they could give a breakdown of the legal expenses. They just the legal expenses was a big, when we've asked them, they can give somewhat of a breakdown. With the understanding, we know some of it's confidential when they hire us out attorney, if we can get their work on it.
You have, the website.
We can do the clearance budget. That's gonna pay 57,000. One of the things that I want to point out before we start with the dollar amounts is the town clerk, as we all know, as of March 28th, is no longer. Once the election is, it's no longer an elected position. It becomes an appointed position. However, the current town clerk stays in that position for 7 days after the election by law. It's kind of like a wrap-up thing. So that would become an appointed by the mayor. Again, it's salary increases, longevity. There is it's less $300 for overtime. That's usually done for elections and stuff like that. One of the things the town clerk mentioned, although there's a 10% cut in all the other budgets, printing, it might be a situation that after the election, she might have to put in more than this 10%. You know, the unknown factor is the printing of the ballots and whatnot. However, as we all know, that there is somewhat of a rebate, if you will, from the state, but that's an undetermined amount, never the same amount. The state determines, and doesn't go with the elections. Only once there was a portion was earmarked for me, the first time we did really elections. Other than that, it comes into general fund, comes back, and that might not come back for 8, 9 months after the election. But if you notice, it's, office supplies, they cut by $800, printing by $200, unclassified by $500. The one of the things that they did, that she did, and we all know, so when we got our census, there was a piece of document in there that talked about if you want to mail in ballots. Well, prior to that, in past years, she would be sending out a postcard, and that's where she saves some money there by being putting it in with the census. So you don't have to pay for the postcard to and from. So they're all trying to do. But she did mention she might have to, even though it's 10% in the printing, the unknown fact. This, and when we go into the elections, we'll find out that next time around, there's 3 elections. Last year didn't count. So I'll recommend it for her. Total taxation, $331,800.
A second? Second. Questions on clerk's budget? Paul?
Do you know whether the clerk's position has been advertised yet? Or
I don't know, to answer your question, I don't know if they can advertise until after the election. But they will advertise. It's one of those So there's no hiring freeze on
They
that,
don't have.
that they have to put. So I dare you, but well, I don't believe he's gonna advertise for it.
Other questions?
I did ask him for one question about last year's town meeting. Last year's town meeting voted in favor of allowing 16-year-olds to vote in town election. I asked what the statement, where is it? It died in the legislature. Gone. It didn't accept it. And there was more than one community that had also one considered doing that, but we passed it. Died in the legislature. So there will be no 16-year-old voting on this election. Okay.
Done.
I think, did the town clerk mention that she was gonna, go for the position after it becomes a non?
Yes, that's a. Yes, she is. She is.
Okay, got it, all right.
But I do think they have to go through the process. I think they have to go through the process. Open it up.
Yeah,
That would be through HR. And then whoever takes the position, salary, all that, then becomes negotiable.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, the motion for 331800. Then seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We oppose? Any abstentions?
Okay, we'll go right into the election budget. Again, you've got salaries, increase in salaries because there's gonna be 3 elections rather than 1 election. Coming up, that would be the town election. Well, before the town election, it would be state primary, the general election, then the town election, 3 elections. And all that goes with that, early voting and all that. If anybody's concerned about consulting and the expenses, that's there's a number of different things that are tied into the state on that. They have a direct computer line to the state, feeds into the clinics. The last time we checked on that, they explained it was secure. So far, it's been secure, so no one's broken into it or hacked it. But, and again, you got the same thing. With the cuts that they did use, but she doesn't have a cell anything with text. There's no, we use on election day, the people that work the polls, the wardens are allowed to use their own cell phone, and they get a stipend for that, so drop them $10 for the day, and that's cool. But as far as the clerk having a cell phone, that they use their own. So I'm gonna recommend for the election, $296,526.
Questions?
Just one, no.
Well,
I gotta stay again.
any questions? All right, all in favor of approving subject 296,526, raise your hand. Any opposed? And second one. Very nice.
And the fifth quarter of the registrars is, same thing, salary increases, overtime, there's a cut in overtime, so that is that's a one person operation on Monday through Friday, but, during election time, the three appointed registrars are active. That on election day. Yeah. There's no change in cleaning allowance across the board for years. And then you see that, on the line, the printing line, 542001, you see that $1,600 cut, that's part of that. Yeah, we'll bring it back. And the town clerk gets the stipend as the head of the board of registrar. It's $1,500 less. But also the town moderator's stipend is in that as well. It's $500 item though. That he gets.
Which is this one.
Me too. So, I said that, the register's total is $8,841.
Is there a second?
Okay.
Alright, questions on the site? No questions? Alright, all, in favor of 8841, raise your hand. You waiting? 50 minutes. Any opposed? And yes. 1 second. No. All right. What else do you have for us today?
The planning and community development.
69?
That's page, it actually starts on page 70 and 71. The printed page. Sure. The, as you notice in the planning expenses, everything's been cut. The some of the people that work in that office, they have to be recertified every year for their specific, what their specialty is. And it's a highly, from my understanding from the planning director, it's a highly educated group in all these different things that they're responsible for under redevelopment. They have to stay current, they have to take certain exams every year, and they have to have credits and whatnot. So, they cut their dues and memberships was cut by $1,125, so it's all these budgets have been cut. In the salaries, there is a vacancy, senior transportation planner. And that vacancy is mandatory. So, it's mandatory in the sense that there's a lot of money involved, and you need that position. And they're presently looking to fill it, but they don't know when. there's a lot going on down on Broadway when redevelopment. I don't know if there's some folks in some of the buildings, and there's a big building going on Sunnyside, yeah, that's all part of the redevelopment planning. There is one thing going on. You have a question?
It's vacant.
I can't hear you.
If it's vacant, are we paying somebody for it?
No, but if they fill it, then you got to pay.
But there's a number in the salary total column.
Probably,
So that if they hire someone, there's money to pay that salary.
and I'm assuming that's salary negotiable. I'm assuming that. The, one other thing I wanted to bring to your attention, if you've been in Arlington Center at Mass Ave, Medford Street, down there, those are done Medford Street, those buildings over and wrapped around with the Mass Ave. Well, as it turns out, there's a conflict. And I guess it's a major conflict between what the redevelopment board passed and what the historical commission passed. It turned out to be a major conflict. And at this point, the buildings that face Mass Ave, all that's coming down. And because they weren't supposed to put it up, but the developer that was in charge of that project took the word of the historical commission, and to be blunt, they were misinformed. And when they put it up, well, it's not supposed, what they call it, is a term. I'm not into buildings, the facade. That's not supposed to look like that.
No.
On Mass Ave. So that's,
No, there was a radically different plan that was presented to the historical commission. And approved,
apparently so, apparently so.
and that
So
was
that-
fine.
I think, from what I understand, that dilemma has been worked out. And working out the dilemma, I think that's coming down. Now, what's coming up, I have no idea. But, anyway,
Well, it should look like what the historical commission approved.
what it will look like, what should it look like what the redevelopment will approve. That's the conflict. Not in the right, I don't know, but it's certainly, my understanding is out of my paper things. But that's why if you look, some of the things that we, in the planning about what they get involved in. There's planning, but, and then into environmental issues, and it's really complex. And if, as a layperson, me being a layperson, I don't understand a lot of it, so I have to take the word of the director.
The building is listed in the town's historical inventory. That provides certain rules about what happens to it and requires historical commission's approval of a redevelopment plan. They submitted one, it was approved, that's binding, no matter what else they're told by some other person.
So what is
Let's,
that?
let's finish this budget, have a motion, second it, and then we'll open it up to all sorts of questions. So Dave, why don't you go ahead and finish?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, and it's what it has to do with, what the planning board, in the planning, what they get involved in on a daily basis. So. Again, I'll have to send you cuts and. So I'm gonna put, at this point, planning code calculations, $763,205.
No, but. Put that up.
Thank you. Could you remind me, the school offset is half of the sustainability manager, is that correct? For the school offset, which is half of the position, am I remembering correctly that that's half of the sustainability coordinator?
I believe it.
Thank you.
Over to the.
Yes, okay.
So in terms of the transportation planner, isn't there a hiring freeze?
Non-essential employees.
And this is considered.
Essential, that's why he said required mandatory 2 minutes.
Matter of receiving state grant money to have money.
You speak up loud, please.
It's a matter of receiving state grant money, I believe, to having against the transportation planner on staff.
It isn't, money involved, large sum of money. So, in the redevelopment aspect. I didn't realize how much money the redevelopment would, the return that we bring into the town. And we're waiting for that figure, that's another thing that we asked for. But it's quite a lot of sum of money that comes into the town through the programs.
Third question. Where?
Thank you. I don't think there's a real solid answer to this, but if this is a certified position, I think you said a certified position, who's doing the work? Who's doing the, I guess all these positions, when people leave, I'm wondering where they go. And I don't know if they elaborated, Dave, of where the person went, probably not. But I'm wondering who does the responsibilities and the task that the planner has to do.
I think at this point, what they do is the planning director and other directors in that department kind of take over the slack and they hire somebody else. And the question is where they go.
But if it's, does he have to sign off on something, if it's a certified thing, you can sign off on something, and if there's no one there to sign off on it.
Well, they all have all kinds of different certifications, multiple certifications, so.
Right, thank you.
It's covered.
Yeah, thanks.
And John was, he was supposed to, he worked in Malta before that came here, and he's, but now he's consulting.
Right.
Other
Thanks.
questions on the development? Anything from the development? Project John?
Yeah, to me, this actually seems like kind of an expensive group of folks. You get nine people making $940,000. So, they're averaging over 6 figures each. I'm just curious, is it something that requires 9 people? And obviously, we're just maybe something to think about going forward. Like, let's just say they had 5 people. Could they do it without, they have the director of planning and community development, they have the coordinator of economic development, they have the assistant director, the senior planner, the sustainability manager, the office manager, the environmental planner, the CDBG administrator, and that transportation. It just seems like a lot. Do you get the sense that there's overlap, or does anyone else feel like there might be some overlap there?
I can't answer that.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I can answer to is when you read the breakdown of that department in the annual report, they
Yeah.
seem to be quite busy.
Okay.
And it seems to be a need for what they have.
Yep.
That's
When you read
important work, very important work.
That's the only thing I can answer.
That's most of the work of the plan.
Anything else, John?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Hey,
So I have to add on to what John is pointing out. It does seem surprising that between 2024 and 2027, the budget was almost double. The salaries have almost doubled. And that seems like a lot. Well, it was 506,000 in 2024 and 900,000.
well, probably have to compare actual to budget.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people they have, how many positions were filled in 2024. We have to go back to, so look at that. That budget, I work. They know for that. Go back to the common area 2024. Budget proposal, if you can. Anybody have anything else on planning. Dave, maybe you could find out, compare the 2024 town manager's proposal that have they added more people? Have they filled vacancies?
With the, what I know of, with the exception of the vacancy, I don't think they've added any people, I don't remember adding people last year.
So I'm looking at the budget. And, not including offsets, the actual budget for salaries in the 2024 was 799,601. And I believe all of positions were already there. Looks like this one might have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah.
So does that mean the actuals are incorrect?
That's the budget. I don't know why the actuals are what they are for 24, but the budget for 24 was.
Well, they didn't have a transportation plan.
So, yeah, they did actually, it's listed in that budget. Yeah, they may not have hired, they may have been vacant, but the position is in the budget.
No, right, it would be complete, the pay is not, we hit the actuals.
Yeah, and so that would drop 87, okay, off the actual. And then, I don't know how we account for the offsets. The actual. So. But what I would say is that the increase is not that big. Year over year. It's up, 100K, more than 100K. Well, it's an approximate position. And they all get raised in longevity and stuff.
I think that's the point.
Okay,
So I'm just looking at the 2023 actuals, and that was 407.
Yeah, again, the continuing budget was. And the budget was 781 to 48. So I don't know why the actuals are so low, I have to assume it was or something. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions on this budget? All in favor of 76325, raise your hand. Anyone? None. Opposed? What? And any abstentions? 11-4-0. Do you have anything else for us?
And, the redevelopment board. Again, it's, no cut in advertising. Everything's been cut by $900. Unclassified, it stays the same. So for the total of 11,750.
Second.
750 for the second questions. Peggy.
Oh, thank you. So this is really a naive question. Why is this, how is the redevelopment board different from the planning and development? I'm just trying to,
How is the redevelopment board different from the planning talking about, we just,
It's part of the director of planning has to be at every redevelopment meeting. It's part of, it's an appointed board, although they're not employees. Like, they're not full-time employees, they're appointed.
John?
I believe it's also the state law that the redevelopment board in Arlington is some sort of a special pseudo entity. I can't remember the details, but
It's the designate for a town, urban development agency. Again, enabling the conduit for certain grant fundings that require that to be in existence.
yeah, so the planning department is the department, and then the development board is this, state created creature.
Yeah, I think the redevelopment policy is they have this thing, but that should all watch out before you want to set one.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And one of the members is appointed by the governor.
I don't know why I didn't remember.
We're focusing on section 2. Rob.
Section of
That's
the.
why I got it.
Yes. But one of the board members is appointed.
Any other questions? No other questions on redevelopment? All right, so we have a motion for 11,750, let's say second and favor of the review. Opposed? Abstentions? Anything else for us?
No, the last budget, that Sophie and I are responsible for is the legal budget, we're gonna hold off on that. We're still waiting to get somewhat of a breakdown on the legal expenses. We asked. So hopefully, we'll go through like Monday about that. Other than that, our budget have been completed
Good
to
job.
this point.
Good job, thank you, Dave. Next budget up, fire?
Or.
So the fire budget, as the budget book is, almost very close to flat line. It's actually decreased about 42,000. Yes. Yeah, well, it's on page 122. I mean, the big kind of headline issue is, in some sense, it's not actually flatline because they did sell all the contracts. I think for the first time since I've been involved within years, all the police and fire contracts were settled. As a result of that settlement, they do have to pay the back pay, going back to 2022. That back pay is not included in the salary, in the budget that you're looking at. That's included in 1.8 million that is an additional amount that's actually still has to be approved by town meeting. I actually asked the question, I wasn't sure if the 1.8 million covered all of the back pay. And it doesn't, it actually just includes the current year's back pay, well, excuse me, it includes FY 27's increase. That would be the 1.8 million would be the FY 27's increase for the police and the fire. Julie did send me a breakdown of how she calculated it. But I guess the takeaway is that the budgets will be going up FY 27 by that amount, and then I guess going forward as well. I received some questions. Being asked if with the 5 vacancies, if they are able to meet the readiness requirements. The chief said they were, and I actually said even with the vacancies, and he said yes. They are in the process of hiring people to fill those vacancies, the people all set up, have already been, interviewed, vetted, they meet all the qualifications, they've received offer letters. The offer letters are contingent on the override passing. The one caveat that the chief did have was they have 3 retirements coming up this year, that's almost guaranteed. So I think the takeaway is, yeah, they didn't hire these folks that they're pretty much hired, pending the override. They don't hire those folks for whatever reason. They still will meet the readiness requirements up until people retire in, I think, June. So it's almost like a yes, no. Like, yes, we're meeting we're meeting all the readiness requirements until June. So it's almost like a no. So I think they'll probably have to have a discussion if I think it's gonna be a lot of discussions, but I think they really counted on those hires. So that was a good question, Andy. Chuck had requested Chuck had sent over the study that was done in 2002. I don't know where you got from, it was way back when. It was a study done in 2002 that said that the town would meet all of safety needs with only 2 fire stations. And he asked me to forward to the chief just to get the chief's thoughts. The chief did say, actually, the chief said he had never seen that report because, I guess it is at this point almost a quarter century old. And not surprisingly, he said the numbers were outdated. Specifically, he said response calls have gone up from 4,500 to 6,000. So he thinks that report is outdated, which, isn't surprising since it is from a few years ago. But that was a good question, just we can take a look at that report. Topher asked about the salary catch-up, which I think we kind of already went into. He asked for the call breakdown, and the call breakdown has been up. I uploaded that to the SharePoint. It's in there. He asked how many of them qualify for the EMT stipend. And essentially all of them do. In order to be a fireman, you have to be EMT certified, so it's kind of an across the board stipend. I think the mechanic doesn't qualify, and that's about it. But otherwise, it's across the board. Yeah, the admin and the mechanic, but otherwise everyone else gets the EMT stipend. And couple also asked about the insurance expense, which is just a big variable. There's nothing specific right now that the chief would point to, but he just said there's always a possibility, which I kind of find it a little bit surprising that I guess we're self-insured for workers' comp, and that self-insured gets pushed out to the different departments, so it's a real big variable that they may or may not get hit with, but he said it's a possibility, but nothing specific. And then another almost like an off-budget item is the vacation buyouts. And I mentioned that actually to the town manager, and the town manager's actually raising the hand. With those retirements that are almost certain in June, there will be some buyouts that actually hit the FY26 budget. So they hit the budget that were already approved last year. They are not included in the budget. So it's just kind of an odd system that these retirement packages, they're just basically vacation payouts. These accumulated vacation payouts are not included in the budget really until they retire. I guess in the perfect world, you would have some kind of reserve, some kind of accrual. But the good news is, yes, at least from a budgetary perspective, is that there's only a handful of firefighters that still qualify for that vacation buyout. Everyone else's vacation is much more significantly limited. Yeah, I think there's just like a handful that still would qualify for that. So Yeah, and then maybe one final bit of, not great news is Julie, which Julie, they did mention this when they were here the other night. They had the 1.8, that's gonna increase the FY 27 salaries. As far as all the prior years, the FY 22, 23, 24, 25, they've been putting money aside each year, which is good, but the money was not sufficient really to meet the final union contract. So there will be an additional hit that, from what I understand, is really nowhere in the budget right now. As far as where it's gonna come from, I think what she said, the retro payments for FY 22 through 26 have been estimated and will come out of previously budgeted salaries. So that's the previous estimate. That said, we are projecting that the retros owed are more than was budgeted. We did discuss that briefly the other night, but we anticipate needing to ask FinCom for a use of the reserve fund to make up the difference. So I don't think you have a number up for that, but that's another hit that's gonna come through. So, a little bit of uncertainty, but those are outside of the budget that's being presented here for various reasons. Those numbers are outside of the budget that's being presented here. So all that said, I will recommend a final taxation total for the fire department of about $8,683,478.
The 86,83478.
Correct.
And seconded, Charlie, then John, and then Ellen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, John, I had a couple of questions. First one is, you know the overtime use to date this year? If you look at the overtime category, the last couple of years are substantially higher than was the 26 budget and the 27 budget.
Yeah, I didn't get a number on that. I do expect it probably will be a little bit on the high side, probably will continue with that upward trend, only with the 5 vacancies, I assume that has to drive some of the overtime. But I didn't get the exact number.
So, please think the 5 vacancies will offset the overtime, is that more or less it?
Oh, yeah, the not having the salaries for however many months, I think it should offset the overtime. But I wouldn't be surprised to see that 473, actually 473.26, definitely 473.26, and possibly 473.27 to be a little bit higher.
Thank you. So the second question is, I couldn't hear what you were saying about the 2003 study being obsolete and the increase in falls in the number of stations. You had a discussion with Matt Lowry about level 65.
Gotcha. Well, fortunately, I have this written down. The chief said, this is the first time seeing this report. He says, Paul, he doesn't have the numbers back to 2002, so he just assumes the numbers are even lower than the numbers he does have. He said, call volume in 2007 was 4,500 or 4,595. In 2025, we have over 6,000 responses, so that's a 25% increase right there. And so with that, he thinks that they need 3 fire stations. And then he also mentions the MBTA communities will probably need some additional building. So he thinks that they really do need the 3 stations to.
Was somebody proposing to close the station?
What was the question?
Was someone proposing to close the station?
So the study that Chuck came up with in 2003 said that the town would get by with 2 stations. But it's
Okay, so that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah.
That was wrong. I was involved in it.
Yeah.
Okay, and the study that the town came up with, recommended 2 stations was in error.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we did a study. They wanted to close the Highland. And among other things, we found that the response time from the Highland station to East Arlington was better than the response time from the center.
Wow.
Park Avenue. what
I think it was
I said
Park
heaven, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Park Circle.
So they can jump on Route 2 maybe?
Because if you jump on Route 2, it
I use that shortcut all the time.
and not go to Cooper Center.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of other details, but basically, there was a battle on town hall, between capital planning committee and of all organizations, the finance committee. Finance committee wanted to close Park Circle, and the capital planning committee wanted to keep it open. And we actually, had the data, you know, Brian Sullivan at the time hired some, interns. One of whom later became an intern for Obama in the White House. And, they analyzed, we had all the quoted, you know, thousands and thousands of records. And there was a major, argument in favor of having a third station. And originally, I was opposed to the third station until that data came. So whoever was given that information to the chief was wrong.
Wow.
Okay. Secondly, do you know in this 25% increase, I suspect I can guess, but you know, I mean, I would assume the 25% increase was entirely in EMS calls, health calls.
I actually do have the breakdown of the 6,000 calls here, and I don't have a year-to-year comparison, but the EMT calls are 3,700 out of 6,000, so that's the big number. Yeah. Everything else,
I mean,
that's small.
as the population ages, the medical emergency calls increase. With the technology advances in, you know, Christmas tree lights and all sorts of other electrical appliances being fundamentally safer, the fire emergencies have gone down.
Yeah, we're running an emergency response department with very enhanced firefighting skills.
Well, we're running an emergency response department that we need. Okay? And they did, in my opinion, back in 2003, hasn't changed. You know, when we dig into the details, they do a pretty good job. That's my conclusion. And cost effective. Anyway, sorry, that's.
Yeah, that's good, great background, and I will upload the report to our SharePoint just so that we all have access to it and.
Which report is this for?
The 2002 one. Yeah, it's obviously outdated, but if anyone wants to take a look.
Okay, but I think we ought to look at if that's the report that argues that the station's report is wrong.
Yeah, okay, so maybe I should put on.
We should find the.
Maybe I should put on.
The data that was presented at the town meeting
Yeah.
in 2002 or 2003. I don't know.
2000.
Was it 2004?
Those FY 2000.
It was in March 2003.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the really important trend to look at is the increased EMT calls, especially as a proportion of their total calls. Like he mentioned that Armstrong lost the contract in Medford. So they suddenly have a lot of capacity. I don't know how that may or may not help this town of Arlington, but you know, maybe in the future we work more with Armstrong or something like that, or but it's the EMT.
Well, we have, the way those emergency calls work, there's always a fire truck.
Yep.
And a police car. And as I recall, I'm not sure if this is universally true, but the Armstrong emergency, the ambulances are normally used for the after, you know,
The series, the higher level calls.
that's not the first response.
Yep. Yeah.
Just jump, it's, advanced life support. The firefighter now has to be in the end, what's called.
Yep.
You don't have to come on the job, but while you're on the job in probation, you have to be certified EMT. We do not have, paramedics.
So that's where
That's
Armstrong
advanced life support.
Yes, so they meet those needs, so there's a contract for them to meet
And
those.
we run two restaurants in Arlington, we used to run one.
Joe, do you have a question?
No, so thank you.
Josh?
Well, just return the favor, I would also point out that there are probably 10 people here who are making 6 figures also. So, I mean, that's spread out throughout the town. But I would have thought that, and I can't recall what the town manager said, but with this many FTEs and that many vacancies, the reality is I would think that there's always going to be some vacancies. And so it seems to me that it would make sense to kind of recognize those, reduce the budget by half of those, let's say, because that's 100% of that money is available to us, as opposed to it coming back in free cash next year, where we'll just get 50% of it back. So it just, to me, that would seem more realistic. If there were 3 people in the department, I'd say, well, that's a little risky, but there's like 50 people here. I know I didn't count total FTEs, but there's a lot. 77.
Just want to make sure I'm following you. So you're saying that the fire department should cut?
Well, I'm saying that it's not unusual in other organizations that I've been in that they reduce the budget by realistically what the vacancies might be. If there's 77 people here and it takes a while to hire someone, there's going to be 3 vacancies out of that 77. They're going to save that $200,000 or $300,000, whatever. And if we take that out of the budget, then we can use that $300,000 elsewhere or not have as much of an override or whatever. If you leave it in here, then it's going to come back in excess free cash next year because they'll be vacant. And our rule is we only spend half of that. So we're kind of, we're being conservative in our budgeting.
But they can't hire people. They don't have
Well,
position that's.
I mean, I don't know how you do it.
They can't.
I mean, just the way they have the 1.8 million in reserve for paying, I don't see that 1.8 million in this section of the budget. There should be something in the town budget to recognize that with 400 people that you're hiring, you're not going to be paying that many full-time salaries, yet they're in the budget and they're fully funded for all 400. I don't know who's not going to be here, but there's going to be some vacancy. You just don't run it 100%. So I'm just picking on this budget because it's got so many people, 77.
Yeah, that was the, this is the most vacancies I've seen in the fire department, at least for the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, as I understand it, the budget is set with a target amount of employees for each department. And that's what they try to get, that's what they try to fill. And I don't think that this is one department where I don't think they're playing games in the sense that like, oh, we have 3 people that we're never gonna fill just because we wanna have that extra cushion. I would say the fire department is the opposite of that. They're literally setting off on us. So they did not let those spots go for long. So I think that would be a big change for them to say, we're just gonna permanently cut the target force by 5 people. That would be a real change in approach.
I mean, again, they have 5 vacancies now. Hopefully they'll fill them, but they have 3 people retiring, so now they have 3 more vacancies.
Yeah.
Even in the 24 budget book, I don't see any vacancies, but I would guess that some of those 77 people left during the fiscal year 24. And we had some savings, I would guess.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yeah.
As far as permanently lowering the force, it's a discussion certainly to have. I get the feeling that they don't necessarily want to operate the force at the bare minimum. I think he was confident that they could meet all the readiness requirements, but I do feel like it's the bare minimum that would allow them to do that.
Alan,
Going back to the salaries, there's a note, the manager's saying that the salary reserve this year is like $1.5 million more than usual. My understanding is that the collective bargaining has been completed.
Yeah.
But doesn't take effect until town meeting approves it.
Yeah.
So you can put this huge pile of money in salary reserves, and I don't know whether that extra $1.4 million is enough to cover.
Is that what you talking about the $1.8 million? That's the only mentions.
$1.76 million,
Yeah, the $1.8 million, yeah, the $1.8 million.
which is like $1.5 million more than usual, and it explains why.
Yeah.
But, so I think that's where the money is. I mean, town meeting has to vote the money at the salary reserve.
Correct.
So, but what I'm wondering for the sake of transparency is if we should put something like a footnote or whatever in the police and fire budgets to show what the salary would be, assuming the collective bargaining.
Yeah.
In other words, we take that salary reserve and sort of put it
under the bottom line.
Somehow,
With a sum somehow, so it's like, this is what the salary
Yeah.
really is.
because this is, these numbers are
Yeah.
clearly not.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you're not voting on it, but if you vote on this is, if you vote on the salary reserve and a collective bargain, this is what the salary.
Yeah,
You know, it might be something.
I agree, so long as the numbers are accurate.
Yeah, so another question would be for police and fire, can we take the salary reserve and get a best approximation of how much of that 1.8 million would go to fire and how much to
Yeah.
police, and we can just put those in one.
Julie did give us that, but the key phrase, you know, if we put this in the report, the key phrase that you added there is best approximation.
Yeah, so
The gyration, she had to go through, even get that estimate she's got now, or like, I had my head spinning, and she was walking through and going back to,
yeah,
back to fiscal 22.
you increase the, current year, fire salary by 878,000. And the, police by, what, 900.
do you read that? Fire.
Fire is 878. Yeah, it's 878, 349.
Oh, sorry, 349.
$878,329.
Okay.
Patrol, so that's, portion of the police department.
Oh, we did a fire budget.
Yeah, you did get that out there. So then, yeah, there's a breakdown, and, I see what you're saying, I mean, two things, one is, apparently, it's kind of weird, I guess they're not approved, it all comes out of the contracts, and, I mean, I feel like,
Well, town meeting has to approve.
yeah, so those numbers technically are still reserves. But one other thing that goes through my head is like, those contracts took 3 to 4 years to negotiate. I don't know if that's unfair leverage, but like, does anyone wanna tip those things over? Does anyone wanna go back to arbitration? I can't imagine a lot of people wanna go back to arbitration.
That's up to town meeting.
Yeah, so, but I agree.
So we'll figure out some way to put it in the appropriate language or something, as a point of information or something.
And just double check the numbers.
Yeah,
Right,
well, we can get you to look it up, yeah.
Annie and then Charlie.
So, friendly amendment, John, I just want to point out that what you're calling readiness is actually response time.
Okay.
And so what's important about that is that there is a national standard for response time to prevent what's called flashover, meaning a building becoming completely engulfed before firefighters even get there, and we meet that standard. So my question to John was, with these vacancies, do we still meet that standard? So this is something to think about as we approach the possibility of having to write a second budget if the override fails. Because we still meet that standard with all those vacancies, but we have 3 retirements coming, and if those 3 retirements come, we might not meet that standard. And that standard is 4 firefighters to the fire within 4 minutes travel. There's some time for gearing up and some time for setting up when you get there, but to prevent flashover, you have to be attacking the fire in under 10 minutes. And that means getting there in 4. And you need that crew in order to allow 2 men to go into the building if necessary, and still have 2 people external to both attack the fire from outside and to provide safety for the people who went in, and obviously can't let just one guy go in, et cetera, et cetera. So, how do I know all this? Don't ask. I did a tour with the fire chief when I first got elected to the select board, but then the majority already department head, and this was just one that's happened. And it also came up in the discussion of whether we need these 3 fire stations. So part of that is about the response time and the ability to respond everywhere in Arlington within that standard. And there was one gap, and it's very close to a Winchester fire station. Really soon we could call on from mutual aid if something bad happened at the country club, whatever. So, that's how we can Charlie. So that's both something to keep in mind in terms of these vacancies, and it's also something to keep in mind when we have to write that second. There's a limit to the point at which we fall below the safety standard for the whole department when we start to make cuts. A lot of stuff maybe that we're gonna do that is extra, but not that responsive for height. end of July.
So, Katie's comments are exactly right, so I was making that, but I won't repeat. But
Oh my God, hell has frozen over again.
The other issue that the fire department and police department face are these retirements. And they're sort of statistical. I mean, they can have, the reason you have the vacancies is because people have retired. And with these positions, they can't go out and just hire somebody and plug them in there in the next month. They have to send them off to either fire training or police training, or academy, whatever. And so there's a latency there that can be 6 months or 9 months or a year before they can actually be active in this spot. So those vacancies, they create some surplus money, but it doesn't all go to free cash. It pays for the overtime that the active firefighters or active police have to expend to fill the gap to meet the standards that Andy was talking about. So it's not always just going right to free cash.
Rebecca?
Thank you. John, in your presentation, you were saying that there's an insurance, that there's variability associated with the fact that we're self-insured.
So it's,
What line was that? I just missed which line.
so it's, it was the, hospital medical care, so 53001, hospital medical care. You can say, they got 71,846 in 25. And it seems like apparently, if somewhere down the road, the firefighter or former firefighter is getting treated, and they decide that it was a job injury, and they said, oh, treatability, that seems kind of random, but that's how it works.
Thank you.
There was, we told an anecdote about there was a former firefighter who was retired for years, decades.
Yeah.
Had a knee injury.
Yeah.
Went to get, and it came out that he was a former firefighter. And so ended up getting, our fire department ended up getting hit for workers' comp for that guy who's been off the force for 30 years.
But that's the final.
That was a big case.
Yeah.
Anything else? That's.
Dave, you
I
know,
just a point of information, on both the police and the fire, they have minimum manning in their contracts. You can only drop down, and that's what happens if they have vacancies, they have to cover, so that generates by contract overtime. When I first went on the police job in 1975, the manning for the fire department was 119 firefighters. There's nowhere near that now. And that's what 335 said. On the police department, it used to be the standard rule, we were the lowest manned police department surrounding us. And it was based upon 1,000 people of population for one police officer. And I don't think they're too far off that even now, 1,000 for one police officer. But there are minimum manning contracts that they can run with. The police department can run, if need be, down to 4 cars on the street. And most people don't realize that in the daytime, they're running with four cars. 4 sectors versus nighttime, it's 6 sectors. So that's all minimum manning that they have. I just want that, just a point of information.
So to clarify, the 1.8 billion, there would be a warrant article that will include that?
So the 1.8 million, it's put into a reserve until the town meeting approves contracts that have been fully negotiated.
It's in the salary reserve article.
There's one every year.
So it will be in our.
We'll be in our, we vote. It's money to be set aside for salaries which haven't yet been approved. But it's huge. But the manager explains that in the report.
okay,
Thank you. So I want to tag team on what you were just saying, because I think you were also saying that there could be more than that 1.8 to cover prior years.
Yeah, so the 1.8, I get the feeling that the 1.8 is pretty close, because the contracts are essentially done. So they can crunch the numbers, maybe there's a few things that aren't exact, but I think the 1.8 is pretty accurate. But historically, the last 3 years, the reserves, Alan probably knows a lot better than I do, but I think the reserves are a lot significantly less than 1.8. So that number is not really in any budget right now.
No, it is, because every year we pass these salary reserves, in case the collective bargaining succeeds as approved. But if it's not, that money just stays there. So for example, last year we budgeted like 431,000 and spent 100,000. So that, the money is accumulated in unused salary reserve is still there. And I think what the manager says is that would pay for 25 and 26. This salary reserve is for 27. And, read the manager's stuff on like page 2 and page 3. But the money's there, but it was approved in prior years. Because they were negotiating back then, they could have come to town meeting with an agreed upon collective bargaining, but they didn't, so it got put off this year.
And that money doesn't revert back to free cash.
No, that's why it's called reserve, salary reserve, stays in the reserve fund.
And if there is still a delta, our reserve fund is there.
But all the money that goes to pay the fire and police has to be approved by town meeting. So there's no magic place to get it from, so reserve fund.
Okay, thank you.
But again, salary reserve, staff aside, it hasn't been used for most of the time.
Thank you.
Any other questions on fire? All right, so we have a motion for 8, 6, 8, 3, 4, 7, 8, correct?
Right.
All right. All in favor of the fire department budget, raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you. What's that?
And so inspections is the small budget that John and I have. So on page 127, you see on the salaries line, there's the for typical step increases, FPI increase, and longevity. So that accounts for the increase on the salaries. Under expenses, everything's been essentially level funded or cut. The one line item that my topic particularly about is the reduction in contracted services. They typically use that line just to sort of cover if they get more permits than they expect. So just cut that margin a bit. But there really isn't anything there. So else there. I did send out earlier this evening the report that we usually get on permit revenues and the estimated fiscal 26 revenues is pretty much in line with what we've been getting for the last few years. He did observe that they're seeing fewer tear downs and more what he called full gut renovations. So basically, people are doing major renovations in their house rather than tearing down and building new ones. But he was happy that the permit revenues seem to be holding pretty well. So I will move that the inspection total of $613,359 be approved.
Second.
Questions on instructions? Anybody having questions? Peggy, sort of?
It's sort of, so I'm sorry, it was just my, okay, but why don't we see the offsets from permitting fees going against this budget? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you mean for inspections they do,
Yeah, or I guess somewhere, what happens to those permitting fees that people pay? Locals.
you mean ordinary citizen?
Yeah.
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 Local city, yeah.
But do we see the offset somewhere in the, no, it goes into the general.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry.
My
Just to comment on that, that's what it goes to the enterprise funds of the enterprise
Yeah.
funds have to pay for themselves and fees and things go right back in.
Okay,
All the other things that have fees go into local receipts, which is good.
thank you.
Would it make sense to put a little footnote in our report saying that the inspections brought in this amount of money?
It's not the other department that makes money, so maybe.
Right, you have to include grants, part of that for that.
So we could do that for the redevelopment.
Because they
other question? All right, all in favor of approving the inspections budget 61335, raise your hand. It's yes. We have, we do have health and human services, take it away.
Okay, so Health and Human Services budget starts on page 136. So this is actually the kind of collection of budgets, so I have Health and Human Services, Veterans, Council on Aging, EPI, the AYCC Enterprise Fund, and the Council on Aging, all ready to go. So Chris, I don't know, do you want to do discussion and questions and motions individually?
Yeah, it's good, health and
So let's start with Health and Human Services. If you put the first slide on the slide. So the first question that we asked, and this is also in the SharePoint, if you look at the slides in the SharePoint or the PDF I sent you. First question we asked is, what are you spending those contracted services on HHS? And this is a pretty detailed list of what they're spending them on. I can read it, you can read it, or you can ask me questions about this. But I want people to have the detail because it's a chunk of money with a pretty obscure title, it's $25,000. So that was one question that we asked. Okay. And then if you look at the salaries, we will see that there are several positions that are supported by offsets. So we get some money, a public health offset, I believe, from the state, and that supports the public health nurse, big chunk of the public health nurse, and then we get a combination of some money from the Bureau of Substance Abuse and the opioid settlement, and that helps to pay for Karen Koretsky's position, which is the prevention services manager. So that covers her position. I think we have some grant money in addition to help cover her position. And then the rest of the opioid settlement money, which is not on budget here, pays for recovery coaches. So we're doing a lot of work with folks who are trying to get into recovery. Karen helps them get, she both does prevention services and helps addicts get into recovery programs. And we have some paid recovery coaches that also help those people. So that's what we're doing with the opioid settlement. And then I have a note here in Rebecca's excellent notes that of course we also have a common grant with some other local communities that helps support these efforts. And that's leveraging Karen's position to help us make us eligible for that grant money to continue those efforts, to assist people with eviction problems. We asked a question about, rodent control. I think our question was supposed to be, does it actually work? At the moment, they have a contract with Modern Pests to do most of their treatment at school sites outdoors. And then they, will attack serious, infestations on other town properties. And they also have a seasonal intern, May to August, who does a lot of assisting residents in figuring out how to solve road problems on their own properties. So that's part of what we're doing. There was a question that came to us about some of the administrative positions. I'll deal with those in the departments where they appear. But the office manager for HHS is a customer-facing position. So in addition to being the office manager, we are also handling, they're the first point of contact if somebody walks into the department or calls with a problem, and they have to direct those folks in those particular places. So it's not a position that could be, say, combined with another administrative position out of the building. It needs to be in HHS and it needs to be available to deal with the public. So, okay. There were some things that would be looked at if the override does not pass. One of those would be reduction in the rodent control. Another would be simply they would probably have to eliminate some staff and therefore slow down the rate at which they could be responsive for things like calls about pests or other kinds of inspections. They would need to concentrate on, you know, the most crucial inspections, which are basically sanitary inspections in food facilities and so on and so forth. And they might lose the ability to be rapidly responsive to other kinds of nuisance complaints that come into health and human services, like noise complaints. Leaf blowers, things. So that is, you have to remind me what we meant by positions. The environmental health team will be most likely to have it focused.
That's right. If they had to cut, they had to make a large cut due to the override failing to pass. She said it would affect the environment.
Yeah, which I think means response to compliance. Okay, so any other questions that I did not answer about how continuous is you a bit first? Well, all right, I'll move it first. Who's been here long? So I would move approval of the health and human services taxation total of $782,940.
Annie, the contract services breakdown as, and I went to 39, the Magnolia Field Site Assessment. What is that and why is it constructed?
I think it's in this budget because it's in health issue. It's the soil assessment, I believe.
There's
So
a
it may be
concern with contamination in the soil.
Where would that come from?
Contamination in the soil.
Yeah.
It would be very hard to say. We don't necessarily know the history of every property. You know, we've had other sites that were contaminated that were serving as playing fields, and we just didn't even know they had contamination in the soil.
How do we know this one?
I don't know, we didn't. We can find out.
Yeah. Right. Charlotte?
Do we know anything about the efficacy of the rodent control effort?
The impression I got from the problem was that it's a mixed bag. It's the thing that you kind of really need to do, but that you're never going to completely eliminate rodents. As long as they can get to food supplies, they're gonna get to them and so on and so forth. I suggested to her that, you know, for the presentation we had a few years ago in town meeting, that encouraging the restaurants to use a compost service that would give them a sealed container so that all the food went into that sealed container, might help with rodent control around restaurants. But then I don't know why we wouldn't be doing that in the schools. I think we're supposed to be composting in the schools, and then why do we have some rodent control on the school? So, I just think it's a constant battle. And, you know, as we all know, we can't really use poisons because of how it goes up the food chain, because of animals, and so, you know, you're trying to use traps and electricity and gas and ice and the. To get it. And as we go, I sound very, talking about something I don't very good. So.
As usual.
As usual. Okay, Al has not frozen over this time.
You did it well.
I did walk in. It's a family thing. What else?
That's it. But there's just information, the electrocution boxes collect data. They go with your phone and tell you how many rats have been killed with it, and it's good feedback for what's going on with the rat population. So if you go to a restaurant, there's 100 rats a day, and you say, fix your dumpster, and it goes down to 10 rats a day, you got actual data that was affected. So I guess my question to Andy is, you know, if you're still using that, which lets you collect data as opposed to other exposure, to try and actually get going.
Right, you didn't ask that specifically, but because you're using integrated testing, I would assume they are. I think they're using every technique that isn't poison that they can wherever it's.
Right, and it's the only thing, you can't prove it, you can't measure it, I just wonder, are they still measuring it?
Absolutely, I assume so, but she didn't feel like she could swear we didn't kill all rats and things.
Never really, yeah. But you can tell if something's effective, or if the restaurant owner is doing what you told them to do.
Yep. I can go back and ask her the curiosity.
Yeah. Well, it's an effectiveness, spending your money the right way.
Other question? Everyone else has anything? All right, Peggy.
Thank you. So whatever happened with the students who did the pilot program with the restaurants and having their,
I don't know, I think we asked Charlotte last year, and I don't know as implementation had occurred then, but that would be a question.
But all those kids are involved,
They're all in high school.
Yeah, they're all, that was a junior high.
Yeah, and they ought to be allowed to vote. Okay, any
So
other,
that's the legislature.
Any other questions on housing and service? All right, we have budget, 782,945, all in favor, say yes.
Yeah.
Three noes, any abstentions? Yes.
okay, veterans services. There are two major changes in this budget. And the only one we asked about, of course, was the salary increase. I believe the salary increase was because of personnel changeover and we need to pay that salary in order to get somebody. However, we reduced the Veterans Aid and Assistance budget by $100,000, and this was based on taking a look at our veterans population and seeing what we were actually spending, and deciding that we didn't move the budget $240,000. So overall, this budget is down 27.5%. And so I would move approval for the veterans services total of $245,612.
Questions about?
Can I just add something? Someone had asked what the other unclassified expenses were. I don't remember who asked that question, sorry, but it was for flag and small events for veterans. And usually they're asked to put up a small monument or memorial for a veteran. And so that's what that is.
Yeah, those flags, put on like Memorial Day through the,
That's a different budget. That's a revote on.
yeah,
That's
but
Well, the veterans put it up. Because that's what, from this year, adding St. Paul's something, but
Charlie, you know,
so, you're supposed to get certain amount of veteran assistance back in the state. You know if that's happening at the right rate?
I didn't ask that question, I didn't go back and ask it.
I would want the voter that it is something to just check on. And this is first, this would be what the state is doing here, but it's.
And she definitely presents it as, you know, so I think they notice if it's, but there is a significant delay. So we can share information. Michael?
When did our new veterans agent begin the job?
I do not know.
Right.
A week ago.
Yeah.
This past Friday.
Just this past Friday?
Yeah.
Okay. So, no update on course of the new monument or the renovations to the monument in Arlington Center?
No, I'm not even sure what I'm with this one.
No,
It's capital.
Previous veterans agent was driving the process.
It's still capital.
Yeah, it's still capital and it is, not, you know, it's in the capital budget. It's not driven by the veterans agent, is it there?
no, I think it's.
Officially in the plan.
Yeah. One, so
Okay. Like, it's not gonna die because of the change.
that'll come up on the capital thing.
Thank you. Going back to Charlie's questions, is what we get back for veterans, is that the veterans benefits lines on the cherry sheet?
Potentially, yes.
Because if it is, we know the number.
Match it up, yeah.
If it's the same number, we know the number. Maybe you just ask us that number.
I wanna go back and ask that question.
It was $120,815, if that's the.
What's the question?
That would be right.
Sorry, we can't hear.
What's the
Okay, so it's
question
on
now?
the cherry sheet.
Question is, how much does the state reimburse us? That makes sense.
It's 120,000 actual.
Yeah, I can't remember the breakdown, but we get 100% back of one cost and 80% back of another cost. And I'd have to look up which one's which.
All right, well, if you find that, I'll let,
I'll see if I can put together a spreadsheet.
any other questions on the veteran services budget? All right, all those in favor of 245,612, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous. DEI?
DEI, I believe the answers to the questions are out on the slide. So maybe if you want to go to the next slide. The first question that I wanted an answer to here was what are the consulting services going to pay for? You go to the next slide, so there you go. So a big chunk of it is going to pay for language line services and the translation of critical time documents into the common spoken language. That's $10,000. We are doing one training under this budget this year that is on workplace safety and de-escalation strategies for public facing employees. This is basically, if I recall correctly from conversation, targeted at town hall employees, the public coming within treasury and the clerk's office, et cetera, et cetera. There have been some instances where staff had trouble dealing with someone in trouble de-escalating it. So this is training for those staff to keep them safe. The note here also says that the DI director is working with HR and HHS and other departments to identify other educational training needs for next year. I don't know knowing what training costs, if they're gonna get a lot more trainings out of that $4,000. The banner program on Mass Avenue, which is us putting up different banners depending on the time of year to celebrate different, holidays, public events, Black History Month, and so forth. They need $6,000 to, continue the use of those banners as they get damaged. And then there's $15,000 that goes, and this is mostly going to, community groups and committees and commissions like the HRC and Rainbow Coalition to support forums, educational presentations, and cultural celebrations. And so then she gave us a list here of examples of those days that they might support an event. A little budget for food or supplies or, help with space or whatever. I assume, and then all of that is run through the director who staffs those committees. What I would say about this, from my perspective, is that Fred Ryan, when he was the chief of police, used to talk about this idea of positive factors versus negative factors in the community. And these kinds of things are the things that create positive factors, make people feel included, part of the community, like they own part of the community, less likely to damage the community in some way. So I think it's important. Some of these programs are the ones that are the most vulnerable in the environment business. There's a question about the DEI director and what they do versus what the position in the school does. The position has acted in schools, if you go to the next slide. Have actually changed the title of that position to School Director of Excellence, Access, and Opportunity. And this is the person who serves as the designated coordinator for Title IX. They are overseeing state mandated bullying prevention plans for the district. They need to follow up on complaints and ensure appropriate investigations and draft reports for the DESI on all of those things. And then they develop a district-wide training curricula related to these topics, as well as other equity, access, and inclusion topics. So that's what the person in the schools is doing, which is very distinct from what the town's DEI director does. Did everybody get a chance to look at that slide? So, in the DEI department, we have the ADA coordinator, which is a required position. Apparently, it doesn't have to be a full-time position, but we do have someone who is paying attention to disability access in the town and can receive complaints and can manage increasing access, managing projects like making sure that if somebody says, hey, I couldn't get into a town building, we fix that. The DEI director is focused on those community engagement and staffing of the AHRC and Rainbow Commission, and obviously also oversees the consulting budget and therefore the projects that are creating language access and so on and so forth. So that's what that position is doing in that department, and it was the same position in the schools. Let me see if there are other questions. There were some salary increases in this budget, which looks like step increases in addition to regular COLA. We looked at the consulting line. The offsets in previous years for ARPA, they were paid for an ARPA community engagement position, which is now gone. And a lot of what that position is like devolved to the director's job. Then there was a question about, given that we have all these committees and commissions, why do we need a person in the department? And basically it's supposed to staff on those committees and commissions and allow for those committees and commissions to expand information and to do things like events and educational presentations, things like that. So I'm just taking be surprised anything in the school. Yeah. I think that answers all the questions that I had, and then, so I will move the budget, and then we'll see what you all think. So I move approval of the taxation total reports. It should be, it's just the regular total, because we don't have any off taxes here. $217,039.
Second. Questions on the budget? Over.
Do you know how many languages do you translate the document to?
I don't know, but I know that it's a chunk, because I know that in the school alone, there's like 20 or 30 languages.
Oh, sure, yeah, they take all of them.
I think they're trying to hit as many as they can,
Yeah.
but I don't know specifically.
What was the question, Doctor? Sorry.
How many languages do they translate the critical documents into? Five, 20?
Other questions on this budget?
I have to say that training on workplace safety and de-escalation strategies, to me, has no connection to DEI. It should be in the HR department, not in this.
Yeah, I think that part of the reason it ends up here is because when we talk about inclusion, we're also talking about making sure that staff are prepared to do the best they can with clients who may be difficult, or they may be struggling with because of a cultural difference, or, you know, whatever. And so it kind of falls in that bucket. And as the notes I have from Colleen say, the collaboration between DEI and HR on record. I don't think you could reduce the money, you could move that $4,000 into HR.
Other questions on this budget?
The community outreach coordinator, I think that's moved to the other, was it select board budget? That goes away, or the manager budget that goes away, or is that the same?
No, that's a communications coordinator,
Okay.
and it's not.
So, it's still a part of it.
Yeah, and it's also not way.
Is it, right, the guy one, position one only last year.
Yeah.
Other questions on this budget? I'll have to open a motion for 217, 039, and seconded. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. Any abstaining? There, that budget is 13.
So the next budget up is the Council on Aging. And I guess we didn't really have any questions about this, because my next question on the notes is about, oh, actually, no, you didn't have. Yeah, there's a question about the computer as well. And so if you look down at, well, I mean, you can see the expenses are pretty minimal. But if you look down at the positions, you will see the last three positions there are listed as a principal clerk and secretary, a receptionist, and another receptionist. When we asked about the actual description of those jobs, those titles don't really quite match up. So the principal clerk and secretary is the office manager for the Council on Aging. Again, doing the same thing office managers do, running the payroll, making sure the office runs, you know, answering phones, so on and so forth. And, you know, really needs to be there to support that. The first receptionist that is listed, which is Gomez, is the person who's at the front desk and they handle registrations for programs, walk-ins, directing people where to go. Funny little anecdote, I donated about 100 jigsaw puzzles to the Council on Aging, and Ms. Gomez had to help me figure out how to get in the building and call the right people to help take them away from me, and so on and so forth. So I appreciated their assistance. And the other receptionist is really a program coordinator. They are assisting seniors with food assistance, fuel assistance enrollment. And they're also staffing any events or programs by helping them set up. So making sure the room is set up, helping you figure out what like kitchen equipment is around to be used, serving students, so on and so forth, that you're serving through, helping set up chairs, teaching you how to use the microphone, casting it going with it. And so they're really what this time like, and they are all customer facing jobs. So not administrative cookie cutter. We can put 2 people in the town manager's office, answer phone, and redirect calls on their time. Okay. So I'm gonna move this budget, and then you guys can ask me more questions. So I move approval of the Council on Aging tax, that's, yes, we get a chunk of money from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, which I believe offsets the, positions like the geriatric nurse, clinician and the social workers. So hence the taxation total of $425,979. So I move approval of $425,929.
Do you know how is the offset calculated when planning is? Is something like that?
1.93 positions, yes. I don't, did we ask specifically what positions? We did not ask specifically what positions it covers. But if you. 31,000 I can probably figure out which positions that cover. I could go back and ask Chris. You have a whole budget?
No, I don't know, but because that is through. Odd number. Sure.
So this is perhaps a question I should have asked last year. So at the salary level and also after the offsets, the actual in 25 is $300,000 plus point. And this year it's what? 425,000. Which is a small budget, a small increase, modest increase over last year's budget. Where's the $120,000 increase being spent? Why?
$120,000 increase over.
Well, just go to the salary line.
Yeah.
It's 404,005. It's 534,026, 546 and 27. Somehow we've increased the salary line by 120,000.
Are you looking at actuals in the budget book?
I'm looking at actual versus the 25 budget.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that's the problem we often have with actuals, is that those actuals there may have been vacancies, or there may have been, I'd have to go look at what we have to to make an honest comparison.
This is 24 and 25 are pretty close.
Yeah.
Rebecca seems to pass it.
The 24 budget was for salaries, before the offsets was 474. And the 2023 was 442, but which is not here.
So the 24 budget was 100,000 higher than the actual.
My guess is vacancies.
Yeah.
Yeah, 80,000 more, yes. And the vacancy was, not listed on there, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on that, that's all, okay. questions on council on aging? All right, all those in favor of a budget of 425,929, say yes.
Yeah.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna scroll down a long way into the enterprise funds. Yeah, pass the budget I call my headache. 173. So council on aging transportation. Our biggest question here is why is this still an enterprise fund? And we are told that there is a warrant article to convert this from a enterprise fund to a revolving fund for grants, and then some parts of it will migrate to the complementary budget. So we should see that warrant article when we're considering warrants. Other than that, the expenses and revenues balance in the proposed budget. But we should always be aware that one of the sources of incomes here is transfer from other funds, and that is a transfer from the general. And that is a transfer of $55,000. So some of their income is CDBG, some of it is transportation fundings, some of it is the transfer from the general fund, and some of it is retirement. It did not ask them how much they had in the figure, it was my recollection, last year was not much, and this may be using it all up. And then the staffing is really one person who does coordination and on Dan Rose, who get paid by, by the hour or by the trip or something, I don't. So I'm gonna move approval on this, and I'll ask some questions. So I move approval on the council on aging enterprise fund for total expenses of $115,278 and total revenue of $115,278. Second.
Any questions on the offset? 0.1 more. We just find information about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah. Okay, Charlie.
Thank you, was there any discussion about use? I mean, I see the fuel went from 7,700 now budgeted 6,000. Does that mean that the price of fuel is going down, or does it mean that there are fewer trips?
Well, that actual is from 2025, but they didn't budget higher for 26 or 27. So I don't really know. Yeah, I'm not trying to answer that question, but I can do it.
Thank you.
I
was holding the vote up on that, just question, what exactly is going on?
We can get some steps on the trips.
Did they perhaps get more fuel efficient hybrid vehicles or something?
I was about to say.
Yeah, yeah, I got it. I don't even know if they own the vehicles versus contracting to a service that having a regular van. I've never.
Is this the van they get a state grant? I'm pretty sure at least one of them is electric or hybrid.
Okay, well, that would be great. But then there's no electricity going. So that shows up in the cap budget. So that's
More because Their funding is entirely through this grant. They don't, made the decision that they didn't need product in the capital, so they didn't really ask me.
Rebecca and Michael.
I was just gonna add one thing about for all of these budgets, we asked them, what would you anticipate would happen if the override failed and if you had to make cuts? So if she mentioned that if the transfer from general funds were cut, that they would need to make policy changes about what kinds of rides people could request. And so, for example, saying that they could provide rides to medical appointments within town rather than anywhere, or, that the rides to the grocery store only went less frequent. She didn't seem to suggest raising the fees. They do charge people some money, but she said that the money came out of that. The money from the general fund were cut, that they were expecting them to change some of their policies.
Michael?
Did the council offer numbers on how many clients served, how many trips, how many miles driven, anything like that?
We didn't.
They did not either.
No, I mean, usually people get us what we ask for in the library, so it's something, but I can go back to this. What's happening?
Other questions on council on aging? All right, we have a motion for 15278 expenses and revenue. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Is that it for? Shoot, if you have something.
Which one is this? I'm sorry.
177.
So this is, within the business first fund. Their expenses are mostly. Oh, that's fun, their billing, system is costing less, or at least they've got the budget, so hopefully they can actually do that. Did she say anything about changing systems?
I don't think so. Terminology.
And then there are various, forms of, income, so one of those forms of income is, insurance reimbursements. And then there is a contract with the schools, there's some CDBG funds, client fees in addition to the insurance coverage. And then there's $150,000 they received from the State Department of Mental Health, I believe. And yeah, no gifts and donations this year. There is $120,000 from the general fund. We've contributed approximately that amount of money to AOCC since I've been involved with town government for about 30 years or so. That is mostly to support access for people in town who may not have adequate insurance or any insurance at all, and are unable to otherwise afford care or any devices. I guess what I'm gonna do is move approval here for, well, actually, when we ask the question about cuts here, really, because it's an enterprise fund, the cut here, if override fails, will be $120,000. And Colleen recognizes that they're vulnerable to that cut. So that would be, a thing that we could do without losing personal law enforcement. And so what that really means is simply that they would be able to serve fewer people. Because they wouldn't have that extra money for folks who otherwise cannot afford to pay for services. Okay, so I'm gonna move, approval on subtotal for, expenses less offsets of, $1,4,380,000 and revenue of $1,4,380,000.
Can you do that again?
Move approval on an expense total of $1,4,380,000 and a total revenue of $1,4,380,000.
Second.
Thank you.
Questions, Paul, anyone?
I gave a gift to AYCC, why don't they count my gift?
Do not know why that's not showing up here. I know that it goes, no, let me tell you what, it goes into a gift fund. And I just don't see them budgeting it here this year, so. I don't know how to
Last
ask.
year would be,
Yeah,
It would be 93600, Dawn Sharon Incorporated.
Which is just an addition to zero.
yeah, actually, that's probably where it is.
Where?
In below the salaries, AYCC charitable court grant and clinics grant. So your gift is in that 93.6. Page
They'll show up in the actions next year.
179.
Josh?
That was exactly the same as my question, thank you. Oh, I'm not seeing that footnote of the 93,000, it's still taking the full amount up at the top, so I don't see how that's reflected in what we're
It's on the
voting.
salary page, down at the very bottom.
I see that, I see the footnote on the very bottom, but on the top of the salary line.
It's not on the salary
It's like
line,
less-
it's in the summary. So
Okay,
personnel
that's
services
right.
expenses subtotal less offsets.
I'm seeing that at the very bottom, so what number do you think we're voting on for salaries with that offset? Because
After the offset,
I see the amount before the offset up at the top.
I think we're voting on 1,354,455, which is the last number in the total column on the slide.
Okay, I don't see that up on top.
No, I don't see it up on top of
Which
that.
number you're looking for?
Yeah. It's in the middle of the summary page. It shows this 93,600. It doesn't show it directly offset the value.
Oh, I see the less offset.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
Other questions?
So I'm just reading through my notes from last year, and last year there were 200 students on the waiting list. Is that still?
We did not ask specifically how many people are on the waiting list. We know they're in the waiting list.
And the problem was office space.
Say it again?
The problem was office space, according to my notes.
It could be because that one, making that already negative.
Other questions? All right, all in favor of, you want to go through the amounts again?
All in favor of, $1,4,380,000 in expenses and $1,4,380,000 in revenue for the Arlington Counseling Center.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I get done early because I'm nervous.
Thank you very much, Anthony, Rebecca, we did a lot tonight. Who will have
Christine?
go to, Monday night?
Christine, I can do assessments.
And I hopefully.
Christine, legal budget. I can do assessments now if you want.
Go ahead.
So it's on page 49. You're good? We got Charlie and Chuck and I met with the director of some of this year, the salaries, there's no new, there was a reclass last year, there's no reclasses this year. One note, the office manager is very specialized in assessments, and the office assistant is someone who's they deal a lot with excise tax, so those are. Your titles are a little misleading and they are, fungible. The line items in the budget, the cleaning allowances, the cost of the contract, the auto allowance, the inspectors go visit properties. Consulting is generally appellate tax board counsels, possibly an evaluation expert. Computer maintenance is the Patriot software, and the Web Pro, which some of you may have logged on. In-state travel is for conference and training for Dana and as far as the data collector. In particular, they need to have certifications to be able to do assessments. So, the overlay account, something that's controlled by the Board of Assessors. It funds abatements, exemptions, appellate tax board rulings that influence the value of the property. It had 3.455 million in as of January 29th on 3.022 potential future liabilities, which is, uncollected revenues, stuff that's before the appellate tax board, stuff they anticipate could go to the appellate tax board, things like that. And they are putting 1.25 million of the overlay reserve surplus back to the revenue, which is in line D of your line rate 20. The board has boosted that up this year. And then we're adding 350K to the overlay reserve that we do every year, which is very high. Beyond that, in terms of the number of abatements and things like that, there was only 31 as of Monday, the deadline is today. Last year there were 71. They estimate that the board of assessors will probably modify 50 to 20% of those requests, and then maybe 25 to 30% of the balance will go to the appellate tax board. It has to be a big building for it to be worth the lawyers to take that. But there are 31 cases. And then there's excise tax abatements on cars. Now, this is people turning over cars. Because it's not evaluations, because you have to go to the DMV to get that. That's the sort of the abatement cycle. Mayor called last year, they were moving to cyclical inspections. So we have to inspect properties every 10 years by law. And the state local Bureau of Local Assessments does recommend that we go to this, some inspections be cyclical inspections, sort of spreads up the cost. So they did have 1,000 contracted inspections, 2025. It was basically a wash. It cost $27,000, and they captured about 26,819 in growth, in tax growth, not in valuation. So pretty much a wash. They will do 1,500 this year. They have to do a about 10K more by 2030, because they're done before 2020. But this doesn't include anything that gets triggered by a permit or a sale. Town employees do that. So it's a possibility, though, that they will be very busy, depending on how many, they have to do larger numbers of inspections in FY 28. And there's also this income and expense data that's for commercial properties. There is a fine if they don't respond to the request. And that was just about the same. It went down a little bit from FY 25. There's 36,850 this year. Generally, you'd like it to go down because you'd like people to be responding to this and not the same budgeting fine. The fun fact is, if they don't respond and they have something before the appellate tax board, it can just be dismissed. Now people just move to dismiss. So that's and then, you know, in terms of technology, you know, there's the full assessor record card images now on the page of your Chrome. There's a new online upload listing system, and there's some properties using some digital imaging. They have the images, but it's not on the software. And then finally, the override would have failed, but what probably happens, the entire consulting line item would go away, and they would have to do all that work themselves, which means the director would not do as much analysis that needs to be done. So that is a recap of the assessor budget, and I will move the taxation total, or the assessor total of $437,338.
Second, any questions for the
So the consultant again was for representation?
It could be for our tax board representation.
Okay.
Or it could be for, I guess, like, maybe an outside valuation.
And what caused what caused the big jump from 25 to 26 budget? 25 actual, 26 budget?
On the consulting?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was,
Because the 27 budget line for consulting looks reasonable compared to 26 budget, completely out of perspective compared to 25.
25 is not there, it's not true, it's not budgeted. Well, yeah, so some of this was, the cyclical inspections, that's a chunk of it. And I think the other part is, yeah, when you have a power tax board case, you have to put in counsel. I can ask for a data breakdown if you want.
But wasn't the change due to the fact that the inspections were done every 5 or 9 years or something like that?
Yeah.
And then they went, in that year, they started doing them.
Yeah, they started doing
annual. So they used to be coming for $250,000 every 5 or 8 years. Now they're spreading it out on an annual basis.
So that figures it out.
Yeah, the commercial inspections, I looked at, they do all sorts of stuff right now. And won't be doing that for
Okay.
other questions? All right, we have a motion for 437,338. It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any extensions? Unanimous. Thank you. I think that's it for budgets tonight. So we'll have legal and police. Somebody else think they might have budget on Monday? Carolyn might have human resources. All right, do we have, is this room available? I drove by the police and I don't know where to give them still in there. So I think we'll continue at least on Monday, being here. And then start with, budgets are available. Everyone else still looking at budgets, it was great. We were doing the economy, we trying to get them ready for that. Accept them. Anybody have anything else? You wanna talk about a raise?
Do any of those committees have money back from the state that they want to come to?
They have, I heard from one committee who said, oh, go talk to these people, I'm actually just a member, I'm not, so nobody has responded. We set aside the last Monday and Wednesday, the last Monday and Wednesday in February for the Tuesday day, and pretty much that's all we got. So, does anyone have any information on the draft warrant? Alan, do you have any,
Sorry, to hear it.
Alan Toss, did you have any information on the draft warrant? You're muted. You're muted, Alan. We can read your lips, but.
Yeah, the warrant, as you know, closed last Friday. So this week they've been working on it. I was gonna touch bases with Ashley, tomorrow actually, and just see the status. Maybe I could at least get, the articles that will need hearing, so I will try to do that tomorrow.
Okay, great, so we can talk about that maybe on Monday. All right, so unless I hear any complaints, I follow the meeting adjourned. Thank you.